And with that, Dominic, let's move in to UFC Orlando, our main event, where Stephen Thompson, at 39 years old and all, gets the fourth round TKO over Kevin Holland. This happened at the end of the round. Corner stoppage. Kevin Holland's corner stepping in. It looked like Kevin Holland might have broke his hand, his right hand, and broken at least a rib or two on that right side. So I think this fight was a lot of fun for about the first half. And then the second half of this fight, boy, what a masterclass it was. And it goes to show, Dom, that under the right kind of matchups, if you give Stephen Thompson a guy who will stand and strike with him, he is still as legit as it gets. Yes. He may not be quite as deadly as he was in 2016, 2017. He may not be as capable of defending himself against grapplers and wrestlers. Maybe just a tad slower. The chin may be just a tad more tested. But under these kind of matchups where you get a guy who's willing to strike with him, who looks to try to outpower him, where he has the obvious accuracy and technique advantages, he put on a show here. I mean, he looked 25 years old. He's 39. Yeah. Obviously, I don't quite. I think this might hurt our good friend and JP, who was talking about this, and I don't mean it to come off as a slight, but I think the idea of Wonderboy being in the title picture is kind of past. I think he's sort of past that point. I think he's more so wanting these kind of fights, these fun matchups where guys are going to want to stand and trade with him, and I don't blame him because this is the kind of fight I want to see him in. I don't want to see him fight Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Right, yeah.
Don't need to see it.
Yeah.
So, Dominic, your thoughts on the showcase, the masterclass that was Stephen Wonderboy's performance over Kevin Holland?
I mean, kind of like I said on Thursday, guys, I just felt like over the course of 5 rounds, if Kevin was willing and wanting, I should say, to strike with Stephen Thompson, it just was not a good idea, regardless of his power. And I think even without a broken hand, Wonderboy was still pulling away as that fight went round by round, minute by minute, man, because his output is just insane. The fact that he can keep that pace, the way that he moves around the octagon and constantly evading, and he can do that for 25 minutes is absolutely insane. So it was just the past 2 wins for Wonderboy, Jeff Neal and now Kevin Holland, are 2 of the best performances we've ever seen from Wonderboy Thompson. So I mean, all credit to him to be turning 40, I believe, in February and still doing this level of MMA and this level of striking is insane against good competition. Kevin Holland, man, gave it his absolute all in those early rounds. He was throwing big power shots, had a great first round. Second round was great for Wonderboy. It was just such a sick fight. It was literally trending toward the fight of the year, at least not the number one, but in the discussion of our nominees here in a couple weeks on the Joeys. And then it just happened. That hand seemed to be broken, and Wonderboy did not let up, dude. And I'll say this. There was, I believe, 2 instances where Kevin had in either a scramble or just some sort of awkward situation where they were on the ground and Kevin was on top, and he chose not to really pursue anything. And I just wonder why. Why would he not at least try to do it? Or was he just wanting to put on a show, which I respect that. But if he really wanted to win, he has an advantage down there if he has Wonderboy on his back. So I question that a little bit, but if he was just wanting to give the fans a show, it is what it is. But Wonderboy looks absolutely amazing. I don't know about the title picture either. It would be crazy if there's a world where he gets his way back there. But I will say this much. If he can, let's say he fights like a Jorge Masvidal. I know you mentioned that last night. Say he wins that fight. Another striker, right? So it's winnable. A rematch from a while back as well. Let's say he wins that fight, and for some odd reason, everything ahead of him works out to where maybe Wonderboy gets one more chance, and Leon Edwards is still the champion, who's another striker. There's potentially a world where Wonderboy could still pull off the impossible. I just worry about that route to get there while Leon's the champion. It's the only problem, though.
Yeah, I just think in order for him to get there, he'll have to go through some sort of bad matchup. There's still Gilbert Burns that he's already got a loss to. Leon Edwards does have a good wrestling base as well, so I don't think that's a matchup that particularly favors him. He's still got Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington. I mean, these are all terrible matchups. And you got Shavkat Rakhmonov and Hamzat Chimaev on their way up. It's yeah. I prefer to just see him in more of these high level, credible matchups. A Jorge Masvidal. I was gonna plug it a little bit after we kind of got through the fight analysis, but that is what I think should be the next fight. It's a matchup's already happened. Wonderboy got the win back in like 2017. That was kind of right before Masvidal really hit that new level where he, started kind of rocking the Scarface look and just started literally baptizing fuckers in the octagon. Mm-hmm. So that's the matchup that should happen. But on the Kevin Holland side of this fight, it was obvious that he wanted to put on a show for the fans. Is it as simple as saying it is what it is? Because I'm curious, Dom. Like when we both like Kevin Holland, obviously. Like seems like a good guy. He's a fun fighter, But he is a guy that has had a lot of potential, throughout his career. He's had great runs, like back in 2020. Then 2021 wasn't as kind, but then he moves down to welterweight. He's the tallest fighter in the whole welterweight division. He's got the longest reach in the whole welterweight division. And then you look at this fight and you see those moments where you feel like he could kind of, find his footing, get his edge in the matchup where he has Wonderboy down and he refuses to really take that advantage. He wants to have the fun war on the feet. But is it as simple as saying, well, that's, hey, shout out to him for, wanting to put on a fight for the fans and whatnot? Because I'm just having this internal debate in myself of, well, you're a high-level fighter. You're fighting the number 6 guy in the world. Can we really trust him to be in another position like this if he's not willing to do whatever it takes to get a victory and move forward? Or do I kind of take out that sort of a glass half empty, I guess, way of looking at it, but the glass half full is, well, we know he's always going to want to put on a show for the fans, so he should continue getting these high-profile matchups, these big spots, because we know he's going to deliver a fun fight even if he doesn't win, even if it's not in a style to his advantage. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an internal debate. In terms of betting on like a fight of his, that's got to be frustrating. If you bet on Kevin Holland, he was the favorite coming in here, and you see a guy that sort of throws away his chances in order to just have a fun fight, that might be enough for us because we didn't bet on that fight. But is it enough when, if you're someone that put money on Kevin Holland thinking, if he were able to get the fight there that he'd have some sort of advantage, and you see him just completely ignore that, erase it altogether, that's got to be pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I would say. And I'll tell you what, too, Noah. Like, throughout the week, like, media day and stuff, it still felt as if he's not 100%. Like, that little mini couple-day retirement that he had, I don't think it was, like, for show. I think he was, like, legitimately willing to be retired. And I think it showed throughout media this week because he didn't seem all that much invested. And when even asked about like his retirement, he was like, oh, it's definitely still on the table. He was talking about favoritism in fights and like, if Hamzat gets announced tomorrow to fight for the 185-pound title, then I'm absolutely calling it quits and yada yada yada. So it's interesting because in a sense, hasn't he almost been kind of treated that same way? Not as much as a guy like Hamzat, but like, again, he was fighting the number 6 guy, Stephen Thompson, in the world here with no real rhyme or reason to get that opportunity. So I don't know, man. I just feel like we really could see Kevin Holland potentially retire sooner than what we may think. Like that little mini one, I think in his head, mentally, he might be ready and willing to step away from the sport, in all honesty.
I'm not even sure if that's a bad idea either. He's made a good amount of money, it appears. he this is what I mean is like he's a very popular guy. He's a good character. He's a nice guy to have around the sport.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's not going to do what it takes to get a win, then maybe retirement is a good option for him. You know, if he's not really taking this seriously. I'm not saying he isn't, but if he's just, taking this as an opportunity to fight a legend, Wonderboy, get paid and just put on a good fight for the fans. Like, yeah, I understand we're fans. We want to watch good fights. I've complained about guys like Israel Adesanya and Bilal Muhammad in the past and stuff. But there's ways to have fun fights, but still fight to your advantage. And I just think Kevin Holland didn't really do that here. So maybe retirement is a good option. You hate to say that about a guy who has a lot of potential, still pretty young, but if he's already thinking about it, that's what Dana White used to always say. If you're already talking about it, if you're thinking about it, you might as well just do it because you're already got a foot out the door at that point.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in 2023 with Kevin Holland.
Any thoughts on the Wonderboy Jorge Masvidal matchup?
I don't hate that. I mean, especially if we're not going to get Gilbert Burns, obviously, versus Jorge Masvidal. Jorge's been out for a while. That's a fun fight. It's a rematch. I believe that fight was pretty close, if I'm not mistaken, from a few years back as well. So It's two guys that are in fun fights. People like watching them fight. It wouldn't be boring by any means. I wouldn't imagine a world where it would be. So I'm not opposed to that at all. And still, like rankings-wise evens, it makes sense as well. They're two top 10 guys. So, yeah, why not?
Yeah, with those guys, though, in their place, like, rankings don't really matter at that point. Like, I don't see Masvidal ever fighting for a belt again. I think Wonderboy's time in the title picture's kind of passed. They're kind of in, like, a separate wing of the welterweight division, in my opinion. They're more fighting for the legacy, money, bigger fights than really trying to advance toward a title shot.
I don't know. Like, I'm more so for Jorge in that respect because he's obviously been in these big mega fights before. But I still feel like both guys have the desire to get to the title. It's just a matter of, like, realistically, is it going to happen? You know what I mean? It's kind of...
Yeah, I guess realistically, I just think there's no chance that either one of them get back there,
So it makes sense for them to fight,
But I mean...